Good afternoon and welcome to Today on Bay TV. We are live in Swansea on Wednesday, 3rd of May 2017. I'm Henry Darby-Cook and Robert Llewelyn-Jones is back with us. Have you missed us, Robert?
Very much.
Yeah?
Very much, yes.
We are joined by Richard Beale, the Rambler, and Keith Milward has also joined us on the sofa today. So, Richard, we'll start with you. Where have you been rambling?
Well, the last walk we were meant to do was on Sunday, but had to cancel it because of bad weather. But what I would like to talk about is a walk we did Thursday of last week in the Brecon Beacons.
That sounds great.
It's called the Brecon Beacons Horseshoe Walk, and we started near a reservoir up near Ponstycho, walked up steeply up onto a ridge, followed that around past Corndee and Penavant, the highest point in the Beacons, circled right round some steep climbs up and down then down a road, then back to the track, back to the beginning then. I think we've got a video clip of that.
We have got a clip. Should we have a little look? So, Richard, if you want to talk us through it, what we're seeing.
Yeah, this is on the way up now. We're walking towards, you can see the beacons, the high point in the background there. And we followed this track up to a dam and a reservoir, disused reservoir. And there's a bit of a steep climb from there onwards. But we follow a ridge. Once you climbed up there, and it took us 35 minutes, this is where we are on the ridge now. And you can see ahead of you the high points of the beacons then.
Very picturesque.
Yeah, and the weather was a bit iffy. When we got further on, the cloud came down. It was a bit misty, unfortunately, but that's the way it is, you know.
That's the wonder of the beacons. That's why people die on those mountains, because they don't realise just what, you know, they're not as prepared as you are.
That's right. Quite a lot of people walk up there from Storey Arms, but this is a less popular route, as you can see. We didn't see that many people. Now we're heading north to the top, and by which time the weather started close down a little bit.
It looks like you're going into the clouds.
To the top of Penavant.
Yes. Corndee and Penavant. Very windy on the top, so you have to be careful. But
was there a view, or were you in the clouds?
It cleared after a little while. It started to pick up, but it wasn't great. When we came further down, we got a better view again then. This is on the way back now. And by which time, of course, the way things are, the cloud had lifted. But, of course, we weren't up there anymore. But it was a great walk, and 11 of us on it, so it was good fun.
We used to walk the Roman road from Brecon.
That was the end of it.
That was the end of it, yes.
Yeah, that's the way we walked back, exactly.
So how long did it take?
It took us about 6 hours altogether. And as always, at the end, you have to have some refreshment. You get thirsty. And
so where did you go? To the Nanty, was it?
We went to a pub called the Red Cow, which is renowned for good chips and beer. So we sampled a bit of both.
Where is that? In
Ponstycho.
The Red Cow in Ponstycho. Yes, I know, yes.
I've climbed from the Storey Arms that way. It really is fantastic.
It is fantastic.
That view is amazing.
Yeah. It's well.
Are you thinking of joining the SAS?
We do see them up there sometimes when they're training.
Of course.
Not this time, but yeah.
So what walks are coming up, Richard?
Okay, there's a couple of the weekend. One is in the Avon Valley, about 6 miles regular Saturday walk. And then there's also one on Saturday in Gower, Llanelli. That's about a 9-mile walk. And then on next Monday, we've got one of our shorter walks, 2 to 3 miles, called Beach, Brandy and Bones. And it starts in Bishopston, going down to Pulthdee Bay, and there's a bit of a story to tell. So this is one of the walks for people who want to try walking with us. Not too testing, not too strenuous. Unfortunately, I won't be here. I'll be in Spain with 25 other people from our group. We're going to have a week in southern Spain, flying on Saturday to Malaga. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Walking around pleasure spots, I take it.
Some mountain walking. We're using a company to organise the walks for us, but that's a sort of spin-off from our group, really. And this is what happens. People get the bug for walking, and it was suggested a year ago, would we like to organise a trip to Spain? And my partner and I took it on.
Is that the Sierra Nevada mountains?
Further south of that, yeah. Nearer to the coast, in fact, but it's part of the same complex, I suppose.
So let's talk more about the walk that's coming up and possibly people getting involved. I know we've talked about it a lot, but if anyone thinks, that sounds great to do that short walk was it on Monday?
It's on Monday, yeah.
So how do people get involved? How do they get in contact?
Okay, if they go onto our website, they'll see the details. But basically, it starts at 10:30 in Pyle Corner in Bishopston, and the two leaders will be there, Maggie Jones and Barbara Parry. They'll meet the walkers there, they'll explain to them about the walk, and it's 2 to 3 miles, walking down Pulthdee Lane, down to Pulthdee Bay, and all be over by about 12:30. So it doesn't take up too much time, but if people want to try it, it's not too strenuous, and they'll be given a good welcome, I'm sure.
What about preparing them dress-wise, shoes and that kind of thing.
Most of the walks, ideally need walking boots or approach shoes. You know, you need not ordinary shoes generally because, you know, the ground can be wet and slippery in places. That's one of the important things, the right footwear, and then obviously you need the right socks to go with it. Walking trousers. Jeans are not a good idea because if it does rain, then it absorbs a lot of water and you get very cold and damp. And there's a comfortable top then of some sort then. It might be a bit windy. Maybe bring a thin fleece.
In other words, come suitably dressed.
Yes, I mean, they can ring up the leader and just check if it's the right thing for them. But, you know, people do come reasonably prepared. And, you know, if they're not, then obviously the leader will advise them. But, you know, safety comes as a priority. That's important.
I love the title of the walk. You know,
Yes.
Say the title again.
Beach, Brandy and Bones.
That's Brandy.
Yeah.
Brandy. That's Brandy Cove,
Brandy
I guess,
Cove.
then, isn't it? Yes,
the beach is Pulpty, and the Bones is, I think, it's something to do with where some shipwrecked sailors were buried about 200 years ago. I think it's a reference to that. It's not my walk, and the title's been thought up by the leaders. So
it's really good.
It attracts people's interest.
Of course
really,
it does.
Imagination, yeah.
Wow. Well, as you both know, in the first part as well, we usually do on this day, and we look back in history to what happened on this day today. We're going to start in 2000, where 2 Libyan men pleaded not guilty to charges that they were involved in the Lockerbie bombings of the Pan Am Flight 103 in 1988. Robert, did you report on the Lockerbie bombings?
No, I didn't. That was it was before I joined the Western Mail a little later than that. But I remember exactly where I was that night, and I've said all the time here. I was at the Prince of Wales in Kenfig, and the news came through, and a friend of mine, some month or two before, had flown on that very route to the States, and I remember, you know, ringing her up and saying, you know, how fortunate she was. You know, it was. I remember that night especially. You know, the night of the Lockerbie disaster.
Very sad, and kind of, I guess, the birth of what we now know as terrorist attacks that happen far too often. That was it was the first major one, I guess, that wasn't involved with the IRA to happen on British soil.
Yeah, well, airport security took an upward march from there, didn't it? And, you know, it became extremely difficult. I mean, hence, you know, if you do still have instances where people put luggage on a plane and don't get on themselves. And then, of course, this is discovered and the whole flight is stopped for hours while they take the luggage off and then reallocate it and go through the procedures. I mean, I'm delighted that they do that. You know, I'd rather spend an extra 7 hours on the ground and be welcomed in the heavenly kingdom.
I'd rather have the security that there is, you know, for reassurance.
Yes.
Moving on, 2008, Boris Johnson won the race to become the Mayor of London, ending Ken Livingstone's 8-year reign at City Hall. Obviously, Boris has gone on to bigger and better things, people may say. Obviously, he was heavily involved in getting us out of Europe and the Brexit deal. The Mayor of London role is a strange one, isn't it, Robert?
Well, we're going to have mayors of every city now. Swansea may well qualify for this. I don't know.
We have a mayor.
Yes, but not, a professional one.
Oh, okay.
You know, a man who is responsible for the city budget and goodness knows what. You know, I don't think we have one in Cardiff, do we? We have a council leader there, but Birmingham, Manchester,
Bristol,
they all have these. Interesting posts. Interesting, you know.
It's an American idea, isn't it?
It's an American idea, of course. Mayor Daley was the famous example in Chicago where he actually shot those demonstrators, or the State Guard did. You know, yes, it's something, they call it progress, Henry. Maybe one day you'll decide to stand for the council.
Possibly. In the final moments, this is a great did you know. The first unsolicited bulk commercial email was sent in 1978 from the Digital Equipment Corporation. We now know this as spam. And we all obviously hate spam emails. It fills all my email addresses. Are you?
I still think of spam as something that comes out of a tin. you put between two slices of bread, yes.
Thank you. After the break, Keith is going to be staying with us as we have a look at today's newspapers. Welcome back to Today on Bay TV. I'm Henry Darby Cook and this is Robert Llewelyn-Jones. Keith Milward has stayed with us, and so is Richard Beale. So should we have a little look at today's newspapers and other stories?
Where would you like to start?
Well, we're going to start with the Mirror. So this is kind of... we did On This Day in part one, but obviously Madeleine McCann is also an On This Day. Yeah. She went missing 10 years ago today in Portugal.
Yes.
So this is obviously circulating again on the front of the papers. It's actually, for the last couple of days and weeks, it's been back on the front pages with people still asking for answers. Obviously, from our point of view, as the general public, I don't think we've seen a huge amount of progress within the case, but it seems that Scotland Yard and Portuguese police believe they keep finding new things.
Well, they Panorama have a picture, a programme dedicated to this evening, don't they? They do, yeah. So that'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
It's amazing that there's still evidence coming out now that there's been a woman seen and then there's a car going up the wrong way, up a one-way street.
Twice within the last 10 years, they've believed to have found her in Morocco, and then it wasn't her. There's a huge... The one thing here, the Daily Mail have gone with, as the McCanns mark 10 years of agonising pain without Maddie, how can the Portuguese police still be so vile? So this is a story that kind of came up. It came up 10 years ago, and it's resurfaced this week that the 49 questions that they asked Kate McCann, 48 of them she decided not to answer 10 years ago. And obviously this is something that kind of hangs over Jerry and Kate's head. But obviously at a time of stress and when your daughter's gone missing, you know, they were under huge amounts of scrutiny from the Portuguese police. But it's still a horrible story. And I think we all have to remember as well, there's so many missing people from Britain and all over the world. This isn't just one case, but it's...
Yes, there's a service going on in the church in Portodalus, isn't it? And that is what the service is going to be about for all the missing people, the missing children over the years, and because it's still happening.
One thing that's obviously come up is how much Scotland Yard have spent. So in the last 10 years, it looks to be in the amount of £13 million has gone into this investigation of taxpayers' money. Is that something that the public should know, Robert, where money's being spent? Because obviously this frustrates people, doesn't it, when it's a case that's actually overseas?
Well, any investigation costs money, irrespective of where it is and what the circumstances are. I mean, we forget that the most famous case of all, perhaps, of a missing person was Lucan. You know, and how many years that dragged on for. Until he was officially pronounced dead by the courts and his estate passed to the family. But with this little girl, I mean, you feel sorry for her parents because they'll never know what's happened to her. She could still be alive, or they'll never grieve properly for her. And
closure is a huge thing that's needed.
Grief is...
Closing siblings as well, and the twin siblings. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Do you think there'll ever be an end to this, Richard, or do you think there has to be a discovery made for us to kind of close this book?
Well, I suppose these cases they can carry on for a long time. A discovery does need to be made. That's for sure. But I mean, it's maybe gone a bit colder and it's revived a little bit. But I suppose the police never completely close a file on these things. They put it perhaps to one side, but know that if new evidence comes forward, they developed in forensics and so on, you never know what's going to come out of this sort of thing.
It's a sad thing. One has to have sympathy with the parents. What more can you say?
Well, they'll never be able to have a normal life again, will they?
No. I suppose not.
You know, even probably things like going to the supermarket, you'll have people asking questions or pointing because there's, you know, such recognisable faces because the amount they've been in the media.
Yeah. I think also they'd be worried to have a sort of bit of a guilt complex about it, leaving the child alone for a short time. But other people do it, but unfortunately it doesn't work out for them.
That's the tragedy, isn't it? That's the tragedy. Anyway, what else have you got for us?
Moving on, Barack Obama has tweeted in the last kind of 24 hours. Now, this is quite an important thing now. People take notice because his tweets are few and far between. So this week we found out that Jimmy Kimmel, he's a late-night host in America, recently had a son who had to have open-heart surgery quite quickly after being born. And Barack tweeted Jimmy saying, well said, Jimmy. That's exactly why we fought so hard for the ACA. The ACA is the Affordable Care Act, and we need to protect it for kids like Billy, and congratulations. Obviously, we all know now the Affordable Care Act, or once known as Obamacare, is something that Donald Trump is trying to get rid of.
Yes.
In Britain, we're so lucky to have the NHS. Obviously,
Very
we don't
much
pay
so.
for our healthcare. But in America, things like that aren't an option for families if they can't afford it.
Well, we do pay, Henry. We do pay
Of
for our
course.
health care. But in America, of course, it's a wholly different scenario, isn't it? And when you visit the States, the one thing you have to have is your insurance, medical insurance certificate. Because if anything does happen to you, you don't get...
Astronomical costs. Yes.
Well, you've got to have it. Otherwise, they won't treat you.
Yeah.
It's a prerequisite to travel.
It is.
Yes.
But is this, Keith, obviously we've just passed the landmark of Donald Trump's first 100 days in office, and obviously this is something from day one he wanted to start dissolving Obamacare and the
Yes.
Affordable Care Act. Where do you think his thinking is here to do this?
Well, I don't know. He seems very ruthless, doesn't he? What has been built up over the last a decade or so. It's so much is being quashed, isn't it? You know, and I don't know. It's a very headstrong man, isn't he? Obviously, you know. But it's nice to hear this from Obama, and it just shows that what an impact. You know, there's just a few tweets from him, but it's good to see that then people notice that, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know?
it's got something like 300,000 likes and already over 100,000 retweets. I feel like you looked to me, Robert, then like you weren't sure what I was talking about. But it's really important because people do take notice
Yes,
now
yes.
when
Yeah.
he tweets, and he's a great public speaker. We knew this when he was in
Yes,
office, but
yes.
it's he's
Built
been...
on safe
Are you
ground.
a tweeter then?
Not really. I've got an account, but I don't use it yet.
No,
I probably will be doing so
I'm-
soon. But
Social media seems to have passed me by, I think, and I don't use Facebook or.
It has positives and negatives, and when used correctly as a platform to speak to people, I think it's a very powerful tool. Moving on to the final online story. This is a story that broke this morning, so it's not in the papers. Aaron Lennon, the Everton winger, has been detained by Manchester police under the Mental Health Act. He's only 30, still playing for Everton, 21 caps for England, if I remember correctly. We're in a week I think it's called, this week anyway, it's called mental health. It's something we don't speak about, men especially, about our mental health. And this just brings light to that it kind of can affect anyone.
Well, the Royals have done their bit in bringing this to
yeah.
the forefront, haven't they? They've spoken about their own feelings of the death of their mother. I suppose there has been a stigma, would you say, Richard, in the past with people's attitude towards mental health?
yeah, I think so. To some extent, I suppose, particularly with men, it's seen as meant to be macho and so on. It's a sign of weakness almost if you admit you've got mental problems. But
Yes.
it's clearly quite significant, and I think men, particularly teenage men, have a higher suicide rate than women because obviously there are factors going on there, and that may be because they're not willing to talk about it.
I mean, Keith, there's a thing here. I guess people... It's an awful story that it's affecting a man that probably has to, he's a footballer that earns a big salary, so I assume he looks after friends and family.
Yes.
So it's going to affect a lot of people. But it's something that it will make people talk, and it will hopefully make it an easier talking point. Depression in males still isn't talked about enough. Is there enough out there to help?
Well, there is help. I think so people knowing where to turn. That's the important thing with the different mental health charities. But you're right in saying that men don't always like to show that they are weak in any way, and they see that if they have some sort of form of depression, they'd rather keep it to themselves or think it'll be gone within a few weeks' time. But I think it's very important to share problems. I think that they do say problem shared, problem halved. And that it's always best to open up. There have been times in my life that I've had to divulge to councillors what's going on, you know, because, you know, I think we all have ups and downs, don't we? You know, sometimes I'm described even by you as the happiest man in Wales, but I think it's right to acknowledge that we go through phases, you know. Sometimes we need help. We're talking about America, and they talk about going to a counsellor.
Stop you there, but it's very important, Keith. Thank you both. Next, Keith staying with us, and we're inviting Noel Rees to join us on the sofa.
So we see you then.